Hey guys, it's Kingdom Orange 2 here, and welcome back to my channel. After constantly going back and forth on whether or not to do this video, I have made the decision to talk about things that don't make sense about Sailor Moon, and will be touching on details from both the manga and anime, just not the musicals or short stories. Also, I just want to remind everyone that these videos are always strictly for fun, and serve as no sort of insult to the creators of these franchises. Naoko Takeuchi is an extremely smart woman, and the fact that she wrote and designed Sailor Moon is beyond incredible. So with that all being said, grab your cousin, or lesbian lover, and let's jump right into it. Reincarnation. Reincarnation is a popular plot device that is often used throughout Sailor Moon's manga and anime. The first time it was mentioned was when the Sailor Senshi traveled to the moon. It was there they learned that long ago, the four inner Senshi along with Princess Serenity resided in the Silver Millennium. After a tragic war that cost the princess her life, Queen Serenity used the remaining power of the legendary Silver Crystal to send everyone's souls to be reborn on Earth in a time of peace. And while I am no expert in reincarnation, I assume how it works is that while the soul stays the same, the person or thing that is reborn is different. So Usagi Tsukino shares the same soul with Princess Serenity, but they are not technically the same people. However, the use of reincarnation gets a bit sloppy throughout the series. For example, Hotaru Tomo dies at the end of the third season and is later reborn as a baby until she reawakens as Sailor Saturn. Now I know that Sailor Saturn and Hotaru aren't the same person, and I guess technically the baby would be someone else and not Hotaru, but let's put those questions to the side for now. The thing is though, there are two instances, only once in the manga, in which the Sailor Senshi die and are reborn the exact same. They don't spend any time growing up and are the exact same age in person they were before they died. But not only does this contradict the rules of reincarnation that were established earlier, but it makes the effect of characters dying seem kind of pointless. Now obviously, the Sailor Senshi don't know for sure this will happen, but I would understand the concern more if, for example, Sailor Mars were to die and come back as a younger version of Rei than if she just died and came back the same age. Sailor Cosmos. In the last two acts of the manga, Chibi Chibi reveals herself to be the mysterious Sailor Cosmos, a sailor guardian from the far-off future in which chaos has waged a war so horrendous that nothing was salvageable. She disguises herself as a young girl and accompanies Sailor Moon to Sagittarius Zero Star, hoping to convince Sailor Moon to make the right choice and destroy the Galaxy Cauldron, something Sailor Cosmos regretted not doing in the past. However, Sailor Moon refuses to do so and plunges herself into the cauldron. Inspired by her courage, Sailor Cosmos returns to the future, now with more hope to defeat chaos. But here's the thing, if Sailor Moon ends up going with her original decision anyways, what was the purpose of Sailor Cosmos coming back in the first place? The whole trip seems pointless if, in the end, everything is going to be destroyed anyways. I understand that since Chaos essentially merged with the Galaxy Cauldron, destroying Chaos would destroy the Galaxy Cauldron and in turn prevent new stars from being born. But if Chaos is going to destroy the universe, I feel like Sailor Moon is just essentially pushing off the inevitable. In all honesty, I think this is a bigger issue I have with the ending of the Sailor Moon manga. I've read the last act over and over again, as well as multiple articles on the internet about it, and I still can't really figure out what ends up happening. I believe that Guardian Cosmos asks Sailor Moon if she wants to start a new history of the stars, and Sailor Moon picks the latter, which ends up sending everyone back to Earth. However, there's a weird time jump to Mamoru and Usagi getting married, and I'm still not exactly sure how Chaos can technically be every Sailor Moon villain she has ever faced, but I wonder if some of my understanding was lost because sometimes it can be a bit hard to tell what's going on from the manga sketches. Sailor Crystals. In the Sailor Moon manga, we are told that every living thing in the universe is made up of star seeds. Special star seeds turn into Sailor Crystals, which grow alongside their planets and become its guardian and protector. And when the Sailor Senshi die, their crystal returns to the Galaxy Cauldron, where it is reborn again and again. But that's confusing. Weren't the Sailor Guardians given their Sailor Crystal at the end of the Dream arc? So how would everyone except for Sailor Moon be using their powers this whole time without their crystals? The Sailor Senshi also discover that they are princesses, and we learn later that each of the castles were given to them by Queen Serenity. Phobos and Deimos also mention that Queen Serenity gave Sailor Mars her planet as well as her title. So does this technically mean that the Sailor Senshi aren't directly from the planet they draw their power from? And wouldn't this technically contradict the point made about the star seeds? I think it would have been easier if Naoko Takeuchi just wrote it to where the Sailor Guardians are royalty royalty from their home planets, and that their powers, in the form of a crystal, are passed down from generation to generation so that the planet or star could constantly have someone to protect it. This could avoid a lot of unanswered questions, like when Nehelenia tells Queen Serenity that she is an immigrant to the moon from a distant part of the universe. Now, it's actually quite interesting that I bring this up, because if you look at the plot for the unproduced American Sailor Moon show, each of the Sailor Guardians were written to have their own jewels of power, as well as be princesses of their home planet. So maybe these American writers were onto something after all. Transformations. Like most magical girl shows, Sailor Moon is full of many transformations and power-ups. Now, I touched a little bit on this in my Sailor Moon vs. Winx Club video, but basically how transformations work in the simplest of terms is that each Sailor Guardian usually has a different item that grants them a different level of power. So, for example, when the 4 inner Senshi are given their star power sticks, they use the phrase Mercury Star Power Make Up, or whatever their planet name is. The main problem I've noticed with this though is that the transformation items, phrases, and forms can be a bit difficult to align. Sailor Moon has like 3 different transformation items and phrases before she goes from her Sailor Moon form into her Super Sailor Moon one. And not only that, but most of the Sailor Guardians' makeups and transformation items never seem to align with each other's. Like the Sailor Starlights use star power from a Sailor Charge Star instead of a star power stick, and Sailor Moon uses crystal power only in her regular form, while the other Sailor Guardians' crystal power changes them from regular to their super form. Now, I will admit that part of me is probably just confused because the transformation phrases and devices are often changed from the manga to the anime, but even with that in mind, there are still questions that arise. Like, why do the outer Senshi use lip rods and planet power in season 3, while the inner Senshi use star power and the star power sticks? Even if the reason was to level up the outer Senshi to the inners, why didn't they just keep the same item? And the manga doesn't even do a better job at explaining this, because in the 3rd arc, all of the Sailor Senshi, except for Sailor Moon, use planet power. But how does that make sense if the outer Senshi weren't there when Neo Queen Serenity granted the Sailor Guardians the power at the end of the 2nd arc? And I do understand that Nako Takeuchi wanted to make Sailor Moon different from the rest of the girls, but part of me wonders if it would have just been easier if she got rid of all of the different compacts and makeups and just stuck with the girls changing forms. Disguises. I know this is an age-old question, but I have to ask again. Why can nobody tell who the Sailor Guardians are when they are in their civilian forms? Now, we all know that Sailor Moon functions similar to a superhero show, so just as nobody knows that Clark Kent is Superman, nobody knows that Usagi Tsukino is secretly Sailor Moon. But here's the thing. Usually in superhero shows, the transformation from civilian to superhero is a bit more dramatic. Like Tony Stark wears a completely robotic suit, while in Sailor Moon the only thing that really changes is the girls' outfits. Now before I go on, I do have to acknowledge 2 things. First is that there are some instances in both the Sailor Moon anime and manga in which the Sailor Guardians' identities are figured out without them transforming. And even if they aren't sure someone is a Sailor Guardian, most of the time people are still very suspicious. Another thing is that Nako Takeuchi even mentions in her Sailor Moon Materials collection book that the Sailor Senshi were originally supposed to change hair and eye colors when they transformed. But as much as I love the designs of each of the Sailor Moon characters, why didn't Nako Takeuchi stick with her original plans? I get this is an animated magical show, so I have to suspend my disbelief to a certain extent, but I can only suspend it so far. I think that Nako Takeuchi should have just kept the original designs, or she and the animator writer should have come up with some in-universe explanation as to why nobody can tell who is who. I mean, I at least like in the live-action series, the girls went from their natural hair colors to a colorful hairstyle when they transformed. Sailor Starlights. Many different things about the Sailor Starlights as well as their princess just really confuse me. First of all, if the Sailor Starlights all come from the same planet, Kinmoku, why are there 3 of them? The anime does show an image of a planet with 3 satellites orbiting it, so these very well could be where the Sailor Starlights come from, but even then it still doesn't really make any sense. Like, are the 3 moons called Starfighter, Starmaker, and Starhealer? Also, if Princess Kakyu is the sailor of the planet, why is she called Sailor Kakyu and not Sailor Kinmoku? There's also the fact that the name for Kinmoku isn't really translated that well, so it's either a planet or some sort of star. I don't know, I always never liked the fact that the Sailor Guardians didn't have to be from planets but could come come from any sort of celestial body. There were a lot more things that confused me about Sailor Moon that I just couldn't write into clear and concise thoughts, so I had to take them out of the video. However, if there's anything else you wish I would have touched on in this video or questions you had in regards to Sailor Moon, make sure to mention them down below. As always, feel free to check out my Instagram and TikTok pages. It's the same username for both, and I love chatting with all of you and meeting new people. If you liked this video today and want to see more content in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you soon. Bye!